Hello, Christopher Aaron here, and we are in the woods once again. I'm here. It is a beautiful but still chilly day. I thought I would do just a little bit of a stream of consciousness, take you along for this walk. There's some things that came to my mind, as always happens whenever I take a walk in nature, spend time alone in nature. It is more possible to process things that we see in the world or in the markets and other part of life much better. So I thought I would take you along. And there's a dog with me somewhere there. There he is. Hey, Klaus, come say hi. Yeah, come over here. Hey, bring it here. That's a good boy. Oh, he's got a nice one. A nice stick. So I thought I would take you with us, and let's start our walk. Come on, bud. So we're in this area here where there was clearly some cutting going on. You can see that. And we're in a really beautiful preserve here, though. So this must have been, can't say for sure, maybe some of these trees were diseased or something like that. It definitely was not logging going on here. But it got me thinking about lumber. What else when you're surrounded by trees? So I was thinking about lumber, and I decided to pull up the lumber chart, and I'm going to show that in just a minute. So we just had a look at the lumber chart, and it's like, what caused the commodity to rise in value by that extent in such a short period of time? A commodity which at some level is renewable, right? I mean, trees do grow back every generation or so, and I am a lover of nature, as you know, so I certainly don't welcome the broad scale clear cutting of trees or forests, but they are renewable to some extent. And so what causes a chart to do that, to develop a tripling, let's say in a year or two, a tripling in price? Was it a tripling in demand? Probably not. Probably not. I'd say the world probably knew approximately how much lumber it was going to use from one year to the next. Was it a decline of 2/3 in supply? I don't know. I don't know about that. I am not looking at the fundamentals. What I am is a price analyst, and we can talk about the dozens of fundamentals that impact the price, but I prefer to focus on price. So we clearly see that commodities can go through these boom and bust cycles, which are largely driven by psychology. I mean, the efficient market hypothesis says that the price of something is supposed to reflect all known information to the market. So what does that mean? Was the market just wrong a year or two ago with lumber, and now the market is right? What causes the sum of human participants to be so wrong about something like that for a period of time? That is the question. I propose that there is a large psychological phenomenon that grips markets from time to time. We saw that happen. Let's go back to the crash of 1929 in the stock market. We saw that happen in the NASDAQ bubble in the year 2000. We saw that happen even with gold, right? Gold in the year 1980 rose by some 800% in a little over 2 years, and then collapsed back down to the 200 level. So this phenomenon can impact all commodities. Some nice younger trees here amidst a few of the remaining older growth. This phenomenon that we see, these boom bust cycles, is what really has me interested. And so when we look at the broader commodity chart, we can look at the CRB index that had that similar parabolic type of move in 2008 and has taken 12 years. It's been a 12-year bear market, and we're seeing signs, hints that the bear market is potentially in its terminal stages here. We can see that by that terminal wedge pattern. I've talked about this so many times, where the highs are coming down in a more aggressive manner and the slope of the lows, the buyers, are relatively less steep. And so we see that with the commodities. Now, the bigger picture though here, I think, is for us to really evaluate what is driving these markets. You know, when we pull that commodity chart back out to the 45-year view, we can see that commodities are the cheapest in nominal terms. In other words, in stable US dollar terms, the cheapest that they have been in 40 years, over 40 years. Now, we know the dollars themselves have lost something like 75% of their value. So that means in real terms, this is by far the cheapest that commodities have ever been, essentially in the history of mankind, as far as we know. With the depreciated dollars and the nominal price at 40-something year lows, cheapest certainly in our lifetimes. And so we can go back and we can look at some of the theories that were proposed, you know, back in the oil bubble in 2008. Everyone was talking about peak oil, and perhaps that turns out to be true, but not for another 50 or 100 years, because what I have seen from the fracking and shale boom is massive supply of oil coming onto the market. Where's Klaus? He's all the way up there. Can you see him? Massive supply. And so when we also look at the ratio, the relationship between stock prices and commodities prices, this is the cheapest that commodities have ever been. So it's not just when we price commodities in dollars, it's when we price them in other things like stocks. We can see a similar thing when we price commodities in gold also. And you can see here we are, by the way, it's April 17th, and not a bad day today. Pretty nice day, actually. But we're still seeing the final of the melting. Isn't that right, bud? So the cheapest that these commodities have been, and I think we really have to ask ourselves, you know, in my opinion, there is a massive industry of commodity pumping, not just precious metals pumping. We know the usual suspects for that, but commodity pumping. And the rationale that they give is something about having to do with, well, commodities are tangible goods, right? Okay, you know, let's talk about lumber, right? Tangible, we can touch it. We can't print it out of thin air. And I think this is where a lot of people, hey bud, this is where a lot of people, I believe, are very well-meaning, because they understand the problems with central banking, of which I agree, and the problems with the Federal Reserve, and the problems with the bailouts, and the problems with the endless wars that we see around the world, basically since the end of World War II. You know, the world has been in a continuous state, especially the United States, every 5 to 10 years, another war. So we look at all these things and we say, so investors are trying to do something, to invest in something that does not represent the fiat system. And I understand that. The issue, though, is when we're looking at commodities as a whole, this commodity sector, when we see those multi-generational low prices, the only way that this can be interpreted is that we as a species have actually gotten so efficient at extracting these commodities from the ground that the supply is plentiful for the foreseeable future. You know, we see this with, I mean, oil is an excellent example, oil and natural gas. The level of increase, for example, out of North Dakota. North Dakota has produced something like a tenfold increase in oil supply over the last decade alone, and I can show that chart. A tenfold increase out of one state in the United States alone, you know, due to all these technologies that came out after the bubble in oil in 2008. So we see humanity becoming more efficient at producing these things, and at the same time we see tremendous waste. You know, we see the tremendous waste by the central banking cartels, by the theft from taxation, you know, beyond what we actually need to sustain our civilization, through the endless wars like we talked about. So I think my point here is that I often perceive that commodity investors are only looking at one part of the theme. The part of, yeah, you can't print them out of thin air. Of course, that's right. But you know what? We have gotten a lot better at producing them. And then on the flip side, there are all these institutions that are engaged in collectively wasting our resources. You know, you think about these endless wars, which I participated in Afghanistan from 2007 through 2009. And I saw with my own eyes the waste of oil, the waste of food, the waste of human life on both sides of the fence, so to speak. And so you think about this, and I believe it was George Orwell in the book 1984. Of course, that wasn't his real name, that was a pen name, Eric Blair. When he wrote in 1984 that the one thing that the establishment tries to use to retain control of the population is war. Why? Because it's the one thing that is a double destruction. He said, in theory, we could print money out of thin air and pay people to dig ditches and fill them back up again. Because if we did that, there would be no production, there would be no benefit to society, and we would waste people's labor. This is what he was warning about in the 1930s and 1940s as he was writing 1984. And he says the only reason why we don't do that is because war is the one thing that is a double destruction. We can tax or inflate on one side of the world and then not produce anything of benefit, but even worse, blow things up on the other side of the planet. So it is a double destruction, a double negative. And we look at things like that happening and it's like, yes, absolutely, that is true. And at the same time, we are becoming much more efficient as a species at producing all of these things. And so I am not someone who is a perma-bear on society or on life. And the negatives are happening at the same time as some of the positives. I mean, let's talk about some of the positives. Okay, we're filming right here in the middle of the woods, and we're having a great time and we're taking you with us. I'll talk about something else that really impacted me as far as the benefits to technology. When I got home from the war in 2009, I was very, very ill. I became extremely sick physically. I don't want to go into the host of things that I had because some of them were really nasty. But suffice it to say, my immune system had completely shut down. And I was suffering. At 29 years old at the time, I felt like someone who was, you know, probably 69 years old. That's how I felt internally. And it took me, it took me about 3 years to figure out the physical stuff that was going on. And then it took me another couple of years to figure out what was happening deep down inside as to how I really felt about the work that I had done in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And one of the major, I don't know what he sees over here. What is that, bud? One of the most important things for me as to healing from the damage that I had sustained while overseas was the availability, the quick availability of alternative medicines. I'm talking certain herbs, especially from the Chinese herbal system that I became very familiar with and have used those extensively. Certain pieces of literature that really helped me to process things in a different kind of way. The availability of doctors and of individuals who I was not necessarily in the same physical location with, so I could communicate with them and receive guidance even if I couldn't travel to them physically. You know, and so I look at my own life and I say, how much better is my own life now when I have access to certain types of technology that have allowed me to become the person that I am today, to recover from the war, and to have things to share to the world. That's where I am personally. And so my point is that not everything is bad. You know, he runs first and looks second. And so the point here that I'm trying to make is that when we look at these commodity prices and we see them at multi-generational lows across the board, and I would say gold is one of the exceptions. Silver has outperformed some of the other commodities moderately, and there are a few other exceptions. But when we see that low generational price level, it's telling us that as a society, we have gotten extremely efficient at extracting these resources from the ground. And so my point of this is, it's to say this: look, we can be bearish in certain aspects of the economy, certain aspects of the world around us, but I think if we as a species can stop wasting resources and blowing them up on the other side of the planet in these unwinnable wars, and somehow bring more light to the problems inherent in central banking so that they cannot siphon off from us our resources, then we see the fundamentals there already. We've become so much better at a species, as a species, at so many things, that if we can remove these leviathans, you know, these blood-sucking ticks, which we have a lot of here, so we always check our pants after we get back from walks like this. But if we can remove these parasites from us, as a species, we literally could have a generation of prosperity ahead of us that has never been witnessed before. The raw materials are there. When we look at the multi-generational low prices of commodities, the setup is already there. And the markets are telling us that they're ready to start using these resources in ways to actually benefit society. So I would say, let's be bearish on the aspects of the economy that we need to be bearish on, but let's be bullish on the sum of our potential as a whole. And let's work together to better those things, and also to try to stop those who would dare to stop us. This is actually what really motivates me more than anything else. It's the idea that with the amount of resources that we have available to us, the abilities that we would have, I actually think we haven't even really scratched the surface yet of what we are capable of as a species. You know, I'm starting to think, when I look at the recovery that I was fortunate enough to have been able to achieve after coming back from Afghanistan, when I think about how bad I felt 10 years ago, and how much better I feel now, and the thanks that I have to the various providers and the various information sources and suppliers of medicines, when I think about how thankful I am for that, it really makes me think that the potential for us is perhaps greater than we have ever really imagined. And so that's what motivates me. That's what gets me going in the morning. That's what keeps me going when I'm having a down day for whatever reason. It's this idea that I think as a species, we are much more powerful than we even know. And we just have to tap into that, to the harnessing of the resources and using the resources in ways that benefit us and that don't destroy us. So that is something that I am very focused on, and I would love to hear from you as well. What are the things that motivate you? What are the things that keep you going? How do you balance the negatives that we see in society around us with the clear positive potential that we have directly in front of us? Guys, I want to thank those who are supporting these free videos on Patreon. It means a whole lot to me. You can find a link below if you care to do that. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, though, either way for these YouTube videos, so you'll get a notice when all these videos come out. I want to tell you briefly about the services that I do offer. Precious Metals Intelligence is for gold, silver, and mining sector investors. We cover the metals as well as the exact miners that we are investing in here, as well as the GDX, the GDXJ, US dollar, bonds, and more. And there was a flash update that went out yesterday. Just so you know, we see an important breakdown, unfortunately, in the gold price, and we really need to be careful and know what to expect with gold in the near future here. Global Market Intelligence will be coming out in the near future. We will be covering the commodities, other commodities, oil, natural gas, copper, etc., as well as the stock and bond trades that we are going to be making here. You can sign up to receive a free notice below when this service is available. Last but certainly not least, I work with individuals by voice and by email. If you're in a unique situation and it seems like everyone else is a salesman of precious metals or stocks or fill in the blank, just know that that is not my business model. I work with individuals. I sell nothing other than my time and my analysis. So that allows me to give opinions and perspectives based on independent research that is outside of what you will see from most other individuals that are in this industry. So you can find out more about the consultations as well on the tab on iGold Advisor website. Thank you again, and I'll see you this time next week.